In a world where loudness is mistaken for strength, true presence has become a rare language. Most men chase validation, trying to impress, trying to be seen, but the Stoic man knows something deeper. He understands that attraction isn't built through display, but through discipline, through stillness, through control. Women don't remember the man who shouts the loudest. They remember the one who moves with quiet certainty, who stands unshaken when others break. As Seneca wrote, self-command is the greatest command of all. And that is what she feels. Not your words, but your energy. Not your charm, but your restraint. A man who knows himself doesn't need to perform. He simply is. Let's go deeper into 6 timeless traits that define the kind of man women never forget. The Stoic man who leads, not by desire, but by depth. Number 1, his presence commands peace. There's a difference between a man who enters a room and a man who shifts the room. The Stoic man carries peace like an aura, a silent authority born from self-control. He doesn't need attention because his energy already speaks. While others compete to be noticed, he observes, he studies, he chooses when to speak, and when he does, his words land like truth carved in stone. This calmness is not an act, it's the result of a battle he already won, the one within. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." The Stoic man protects that quality. He doesn't let chaos rent space in his mind. He stands like still water, reflecting, not reacting. In his presence, women feel safe, not because he's dominant, but because he's centered. They sense that nothing can shake him. Presence is not noise, it's awareness. When your energy is calm, others align to it. That's the secret. You don't chase peace, you become it. And that peace stays with her long after you're gone. Because true strength is not shown, it's felt. Number 2, he listens more than he speaks. The Stoic man knows that silence is a mirror. It reveals what others hide. When she speaks, he listens, not to reply, but to understand. Most men hear to respond, waiting for their turn to be impressive. But the Stoic listens like a craftsman studying a pattern. His attention itself becomes rare. He isn't distracted. He isn't scrolling through thoughts. He's fully there. That kind of focus is magnetic. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we may listen twice as much as we speak." The Stoic man lives this truth. In his silence, she feels seen. In his stillness, she feels heard. It's not words that make her trust you, it's presence. Listening is the most underrated form of respect. And when he finally does speak, every word matters, because his speech comes from reflection, not reaction. He doesn't rush to fill silence, he lets it breathe. Women remember that, not because he flattered them, but because he made them feel understood. In a world full of noise, the man who listens becomes unforgettable. Silence, when grounded in intention, becomes its own language, one that speaks directly to the soul. Number 3, he keeps his standards quietly. The Stoic man doesn't preach discipline, he embodies it. He doesn't talk about values, he lives them. He knows that every compromise against his principles chips away at his spirit. And a man who betrays himself can never lead others. Women can feel when a man's word means something, when his boundaries are real, when his self-respect doesn't waver for temporary pleasure or approval. Seneca once said, "He who is brave is free." The Stoic man's bravery is in saying no. No to gossip, no to weakness, no to anything that disturbs his inner order. He doesn't need to announce his standards. His consistency reveals them. His discipline becomes quiet confidence. He chooses depth over distraction, purpose over popularity, principle over impulse. And that's what makes him stand out. The world follows trends, he follows truth. The world bends to temptation, he stands firm. That kind of man cannot be manipulated because his foundation is built on choice, not chaos. In silence, he stays unmoved. In temptation, he stays composed. That's what women remember, not perfection, but presence through integrity. The one who doesn't need to explain his worth because it's already written in his actions. Number 4, he never chases, only attracts. The Stoic man knows that chasing is the language of emptiness. He doesn't run after anyone because he's already at peace within himself. When he desires something, he doesn't beg for it, he builds himself until it comes naturally. He doesn't manipulate or pursue, he embodies value. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." And that's exactly how he lives. He doesn't advertise his worth, he becomes it. That quiet, grounded energy draws people in, not by pressure, but by presence. When you no longer chase, your energy shifts from seeking to radiating. You stop trying to convince and start commanding respect by how you carry yourself. She remembers you not because you demanded attention, but because you never needed it. Chasing is noise. Attraction is gravity. When you stop running after, everything starts moving toward you. The Stoic man is the center of his world, not out of ego, but out of mastery. And mastery doesn't chase, it attracts. So let others chase illusions. You build presence. Because peace itself is the highest magnetism. Number 5, he controls his emotions, not suppresses them. To feel deeply and still remain composed, that's real power. The Stoic man doesn't run from emotion, he refines it. Anger, desire, sadness, he doesn't deny them. He studies them, like a scientist examining truth. Most men explode, others avoid, but the Stoic transforms. He channels chaos into clarity. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. He lives by this. He feels, but he doesn't drown. He burns, but he doesn't burn others. That balance of emotion under reason is rare, and that's why women never forget it. She sees a man who feels love without losing logic, who shows care without losing control. Control doesn't mean coldness, it means awareness. It's knowing when to speak, when to stay silent, and when to walk away. The Stoic man's calmness isn't the absence of feeling, it's the presence of discipline. Because anyone can feel, but few can master what they feel. And that mastery, that gentle restraint, it leaves a mark that time cannot erase. Number 6, he walks alone without fear. The Stoic man is not afraid of solitude. In fact, he draws strength from it. When others run toward noise, he retreats into silence. He knows that solitude is not loneliness, it's alignment. It's where he meets his mind, refines his thoughts, and sharpens his focus. The man who fears being alone will always settle for company that weakens him. But the man who's comfortable in his own silence becomes unstoppable. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." The Stoic man refuses to waste it chasing distraction. His solitude is not escape, it's power. He builds himself in quiet so he never needs to prove himself in noise. Women remember that, the man who could stand alone and still stand tall. Because independence is not isolation, it's inner strength disguised as peace. These 6 traits are not tricks or tactics, they are reflections of self-mastery. Presence, listening, standards, patience, control, and solitude all flow from the same root, discipline. The Stoic man doesn't try to impress, he embodies what cannot be imitated, peace. He doesn't raise his voice to prove himself, he raises his standards to define himself. He doesn't demand loyalty, he inspires it through consistency. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. That's the balance, gentle to the world, firm with the self. The man who leads with calmness in chaos becomes unforgettable, not because he's perfect, but because he's real. A woman never forgets the man who doesn't just love her, but who loves truth, silence, and discipline more. Because that kind of man can be trusted, not for his promises, but for his peace. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to breathe, to remember that your strength is not in how loud you are, but in how grounded you stay. The world may not understand your silence, but silence doesn't need to be understood. It needs to be lived. Reflect on these 6 lessons. Tarry them quietly. Let them shape you. And if this spoke to you, share, and comment your vow below. I walk my path in calm strength. Until next time, stay grounded, stay calm, and walk your path with quiet confidence.